and thanks for joining us on Encore today. Coming up on the show. Going the extra mile, a French film director has taken on the role of taxi driver for his next feature. We meet Benoit Cohen, the man who's been moonlighting in a yellow cab for his art. A taste of island life, we check out a new exhibition taking a look at Jamaica's rich musical heritage. And sculptor Camille Claudel is honoured with her own museum here in France after almost a century spent in the shadows of art history. We're starting the show in New York, a cinematic city that's been shot from every angle in every era. One French filmmaker decided to get a feel for the place before he got behind the camera. Director Benoit Cohen has been working as a taxi driver. It's certainly an immersive approach to downtown and uptown life, and one that recalls a young Robert De Niro and his yellow cab. France 24's correspondent Jessica Le Mesurier caught up with Benoit in New York.
It's a New York story. French filmmaker and writer Benoit Cohen wanted to make a movie about a taxi driver, so he decided to actually become one.
Yellow cabs are really a part of the myth of New York, so this was one of the best ways to tell a New York story, and the fact that you never quite know who is going to get in your cab is quite exciting.
Benoit passed his taxi driver's test and went undercover on the streets of the Big Apple, carefully noting down his interactions with New Yorkers.
They started kissing, touching each other up, and then they made love in the taxi. So, on the one hand, I felt awkward, but on the other, I was thinking, this is great for my film.
His notes then became a book called Yellow Cab. Most of Benoit's clients had no idea that he was a filmmaker in disguise, but from time to time, he gave his game away.
I think the only true way to understand a role is to become it yourself and to live and breathe it every day. And what better way to understand the nature of a taxi driver than to become one yourself in New York City, of all places.
For 4 months, Benoit lived the gritty reality of a taxi driver, working 11-hour shifts day and night, making little more than $100 a day. Now Benoit is writing the scenario for his film. He's scouting out good spots for some of the scenes. Try as he might, he can never quite get the words of New York's best-known fictional taxi driver out of his head.
I had a passenger who wasn't saying anything, and then all of a sudden he started talking. And I said, "You talking to me?" And he was on the phone. I started to chuckle to myself because I realized that I had used De Niro's famous line. It was funny.
Benoit believes the best way to live is to mix fiction and reality, and that's exactly what he plans to do with his film.
Moving to music now, with a new exhibition opening here in Paris. The Philharmonic Museum's hosting a show entitled Jamaica, Jamaica. And if the first thing that springs to mind is reggae, you won't be disappointed. The Caribbean island has also nurtured jazz, blues, ska and dancehall, and this show has the instruments, recordings and documents to prove it. Jamaica's most famous musical export, though, has to be the godfather of reggae, Bob Marley. Simon Harding tells us more.
For 20 years, Bob Marley and his guitar spread reggae around the world. These are instruments from his band, the Wailers, who helped his musical genius come to light. We imagine his drummer's beats, or the group recording in the studio. These handwritten lyrics are a reminder of his musical poetry.
Jamaica had an intricate bond with Bob Marley because he became the first superstar to come out of the developing world.
Bob Marley's music, before becoming world famous, was first and foremost Jamaican, traditional sounds from this tiny island of the Caribbean. Born to a black mother and a white father, Marley grew up in the tough ghettos of Kingston, crippled by violence. He chose music over crime, and at 20, released his first single. One love. his iconic Rastafari style stemmed from Christian beliefs. Jamaica's civil rights advocate Marcus Garvey fathered the movement, which believed Jesus had returned in the form of Ethiopia's king, Haile Selassie, and mediating properly required a puff of cannabis and dreadlocks.
Musically speaking, he was incredible, but I think his real gift was his willingness to bring peace, particularly to the ghettos. He was political. It was like all of a sudden the poor, the developing world, the oppressed nations were speaking out.
When violence spiked in Jamaica in the 70s, Marley preferred to talk peace rather than violence. He condemned police oppression in his single, I Shot the Sheriff. Defending people's rights became the message of Get Up, Stand Up.
Point shoes and tutus are more synonymous with Mozart than Michael Jackson, but one dance company wants to change all that. Rock the Ballet is a US-based collective fusing classical steps with music from the likes of Prince, Lenny Kravitz and U2. It's a far cry from Swan Lake, and it's on tour right now in France. Rebecca Rosman has this report.
This may be the kind of music you're more likely to hear in a nightclub as opposed to on stage. But this is no ordinary performance. Rock the Ballet combines classic signature moves with modern hip-hop rhythms to create a one-of-a-kind performance.
You have a lot of freedom in your dancing. There's set choreography, but there's also choices you can make as an artist. So it's almost like you're an exaggerated person, an exaggerated form of yourself on stage.
Each dancer uses their own unique creativity, resulting in a multifaceted set filled with traditional choreography, acrobatics, jazz, and of course, ballet.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We walk through the whole show and walk through our marks and our entrances and our exits, and we'll go through notes from our previous show, so anything that we need to correct or improve upon, and then we'll start with company class.
It's a beautiful and dynamic show, wonderful to watch.
Classic dance set to this kind of music makes for a great combination.
The show may have only been around for a few short years, but the company has already rocked hundreds of thousands of spectators. Rock the Ballet will continue to captivate audiences in France for the next few days, before moving on with the rest of their European tour.
She's been described as a singular talent and one who changed the course of art history. Yet sculptor Camille Claudel lived in the shadow of her mentor, Auguste Rodin, during her career, and even after her death, she was often referred to as Rodin's muse and his mistress. Now, Claudel finally has a museum of her own, housing the largest collection of her work in bronze, marble and sandstone. Sanam Chantier has the story.
A couple dancing the waltz. At the end of the 19th century, no artist knew how to capture the movement of the body. That's with the exception of Camille Claudel, the first female sculptor who remains a mystery to many even today. Here in Nogent-sur-Seine is her tucked-away museum, which is finally opened, in the old house where her family used to live.
This will make Nogent known. People will come from around the world to see it.
This was a very talented artist, a reason to talk about her.
Before becoming a museum, the family house was abandoned for many years. At the time, her work was of no interest. Finally, the city of Nogent-sur-Seine purchased 80 sculptures from the artist in 2008 for more than 13 million euros, making it the largest Camille Claudel collection worldwide.
The works of Camille Claudel are rather rare, notably because she destroyed several models in her workshop. We got hold of some of them because they had been treated with a bronze substance, so they were saved. Some others had not been treated, so they are probably unfortunately lost forever.
This marble sculpture is the only one of its kind. It's rarely been shown in public.
This is an important work. It was done at the end of her career. And more importantly, it was a work of art that was testimony to her. It represents the cut-off head of Gorgon, and it's also a self-portrait.
The works of Camille Claudel are displayed in this museum, some from her youth, others inspired by Auguste Rodin, all embodying the tortured and tragic life that she lived.
We're finishing with a selection of photos now as a month-long festival of photography kicks off here in Paris. With over 90 separate exhibitions, it's the first time the event extends beyond the city's borders into sites stretching across the greater Paris area. From 20th century greats like Walker Evans and Robert Mapplethorpe to the young guard of emerging talents, many of whom live and work in the outskirts of the French capital, here are just a few highlights from the thousands of images on show. Remember to check out our website, and you can also keep up with Encore on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. There's more news coming up on France 24 after this.